So like I'm kind of getting into bed around 7:30. We read to the girls, and then do we're usually out, like Angie and I are usually out like asleep with something with an 8 in front of it.
Oh, I hear you something. I mean, you're an early riser. My big thing is, and we may talk about this. I mean, you got the blue blockers on, but I'm a big no screens guy. Right before
Oh,
bed.
right. Yeah,
So,
dude.
so I've moved to audiobooks because I don't know, I'm used to falling asleep to something. So the
Yeah.
weird thing is, I'll put on a book and I will listen to the same, like I might move forward like 3 minutes, but that thing is like a drug. I mean, poor Rachel's trying to fall asleep, and the other night I can't remember what was going on, but there was a little segment. She goes, "How many times have you listened to this?" And I'm like, I don't
I love it. I love
know.
it, dude. I'm the same. Like, just we've got paper books because I'm the same. Like, I was doing the thing on the screen, but we went back to paper books, and there's just, I mean, our kids love it. We read to them at night, and then I'll be like, can I finish your book so I can read my book? Like, and they're like, all right, But dude, yeah, I'm the same. Like, I'll read 3 pages of the book, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
it
it's
puts
like a
me out.
drug.
So.
And it used to not be that way. Back when I was really stressed, which brings us to lots of topics to chat about today. I'm going to do a quick introduction and
Yeah, dude, get on with it because I find that free flowing. Do you know how many times, man, I've logged on for a call with someone and someone's gone, oh shit, I should have pressed a button now as soon as we started talking. So,
right, right. Well, I did. By the way, I did already press record
perfect,
because I knew we were going to get into something awesome. Just because every conversation
perfect.
is great. So yeah. So this is Wednesday, May 20th. I am Dr. Jason Bradley, and this is Wellness Wednesdays with yours truly. Today we are truly blessed to have. You know, I don't even know how to introduce my friend Shane here, but I'm going to say one of the most amazing people that I know, and a breathing expert, which I think is just so cool. But Shane is the co-founder of Breathe Me and BreatheMe.com. He works with his amazing wife. I was going to say just his amazing wife, Angie. And you guys can follow them online. He is the author of Lowering Stress Naturally. And if that's not enough, he's also a former leading seaman with the Royal Australian Navy. He has trained Navy SEALs, and he's a father extraordinaire. And this is where it gets really ugly, guys. He's also super nice. And for somebody with a face like radio, like myself, he's also very unfortunately handsome. It's like the guy got dealt all the cards. But all of that said, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Jason, thank you so much, man. That's that. Do you know what I have to tell you? That's the best introduction anyone's ever done for me. That
I
is
love
that is amazing. Thank you so much,
it.
mate. That's
I love it.
I had the pleasure of meeting both you and Rachel at Alex Schaffen's event in the US while I was there, right before all this
Yeah.
strangeness, let's call it, kicked off, over there. So it was great to be able to be with you guys and actually sit at a table with you guys, during the conference there. It was amazing. We got to connect and sort of talk and mate, really, really respect what you guys are doing as well, especially just want to give a shout out to you in what you're doing in medicine because I think that if anything that what's happened now has illustrated to us, it's the fact that we need to shift from sickness to health. Like, medicine always looking at sickness, everything's sickness, sickness. But I think now we're going to see that everyone's going to start saying, let's start focusing on health
Right.
right now. Like it's about time. So, mate, I'm really, it's amazing what you're doing, and like it's great to be able to be connected with you and chat.
I just ditto right back at you, and thank you for that awesome compliment. And that means a lot coming from you, because I know how invested you are in that concept of health. And
Mm.
I think that there is, I hope, I really truly, and I think you hope, and I think we're all hopefully seeing it, but there is a paradigm shift that's happening. And I mean, I don't know how to say. I mean, COVID's awful. I mean, there are worldwide deaths, and even beyond the deaths, there's collateral damage that's been done, and
Mm.
it's going to take a while. I mean, best case scenario, there's a magic wand, and I mean, everything's, I don't even know what the word normal means. So but I'm gonna use that term very broadly, but there's a magic wand and everything's, you know, able to return to normal tomorrow and we're risk free somehow. The economies and the collateral damage, you know, done to families, it's going to take, I don't even know how long, you know?
Yeah, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
look. I'll give a warning up front. Like for me, I have my own opinion, and this is my only my opinion. And I think one of the blessed things for Angie's American. I think you guys know that. So I'm very fond of the States. And I've worked a lot with people in the States now, and also in the military career. So I've always had an affinity for the States. I think that's why I married an American, to be honest. I love the American spirit around business, to kind of give you just a quick view of how I see it. Australians are amazing people, but they're not really that great at supporting each other in business. Everyone's very like, oh, mine, this, that. America, you go there, everyone wants to help, right? Everyone wants to help. It's a very great spirit of helping, and that's why I love doing business in America. One of the really interesting things that we get to see from here is that everything that happens in the States usually has this time lag before it gets to Australia. So you kind of see, things with the economy, things, even with COVID when it kicked off, it was kind of like there's this lag time when it comes over. And this is only my opinion, but dude, you know, there's interesting reporting that's going on around whether people are actually sick from this thing or not. And there's interesting, there's interesting numbers around. A lot of people have very short memories. You look back in the past, and we've had this stuff happens all the time. Like these viruses come all the time, and this one, if you can really look at the numbers, this one, it's not been as deadly as the other ones. I think what's been deadlier has been the media and all the stuff, and of course, and we're on here discussing it right now, but the amount of people that have an opinion on it, and that are, like not educated on it. They're not even in the health field, and they're blowing things up. So I think that I think what we'll learn from this personally, and again, it's not to say that there is nothing happening, because I'm in respiratory health and respiratory
Right.
fitness, and this thing is very much a respiratory issue as much as it is a virus, right? Like I've interviewed, even on our podcast, I've interviewed a couple of respiratory experts, like experts in their field, and it is very much an issue with people's breathing and things like that. That's how kind of like how it gets detected a lot as well. Um, I think that there's a lot of panic and fear that goes into this, and it's being driven by a lot of things that aren't being reported properly. You have things that are going on in the hospital system that aren't being quite reported properly, and dude, it's interesting to see. So I think, the best thing that people can do, for me, in my opinion, is to, listen to guys like you, listen to guys like me, that um, I can trust myself to do my own research in it. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that I'm fully correct in everything when I'm not across everything. But I think, to our point before, bringing your own health and your own body in back into your own hands. And dude, it's like banking or money, right? No one cares about your money more than you do. So if you don't educate yourself around business and around your own money and wealth and how that works, you're putting it into someone else's
Mhm.
hands, right? And I think you probably agree. Health is the same way. You can't just go and abdicate your health to somebody else fully and just go, what's wrong with me?
Right. Well, and I know that just because you know Americans so well, and I quote this song by a band called Franz Ferdinand, which is way aged out by now, and that ages me a little bit, but they were so cool at the time. Uh, and there's this great line that says, drink to the devil and dance to the doctor, right? And I feel like that's the opinion of Americans, especially, where I don't really have to do anything for my health, and I can let it go or start it tomorrow. I mean, listen,
Mm.
Americans well. It's probably right. It's probably like this in Australia too, right? But
Oh,
you know,
dude, it's
I know I
very
may
much the
not have
same.
a choice today or this week
Yep.
or this month, but I'm gonna start, right? But tomorrow never comes. And so, America ends
Oh.
up being the sickest country on the planet,
Dude, we're
where
not that far behind you.
I know
We're not
you're
that
not.
far behind
I
you.
know you're not. And it's sad. It's really sad to see it. And when we look at COVID, coming back to it and look at things like, respiratory health. I mean, some of the main, the risk factors that we're talking about are, lungs damage from COPD, asthma, chronic, lung infections. And then, so I know that as a respiratory, health expert, and maybe I shouldn't say this. I'm going to ask a question. I won't say that I don't know
Yeah.
what you know. You may have a totally different opinion than me.
Dude,
I
no, far.
I would say that those conditions overwhelmingly can be either reversed or greatly improved, and they're not just a curse if you have been diagnosed with COPD, asthma, you have chronic lung infections. I mean, I'm a big believer that there's a solution. I would ask you as a respiratory health expert, I mean, knowing the vast piece that and incorporating even like breathing techniques, into
Mhm.
some of this. I mean, there's a lot that can be done, I would say. What do you think? I mean, how
Yeah, dude, like you're 100% right. I mean, look, let's go to a big umbrella picture of this. This whole story is about immune system.
yeah, it is.
It's about everybody that has a dysfunctional immune system, right? And um, for me, at the like, if you look at that as a system, and I look at breathing as a system, where I focus most of my energy is on understanding that your immune system and your nervous system function together,
Mhm.
and your nervous system is directly related, or where the rubber meets the road with your nervous system is your breathing. Your breathing is that oscillation of your breath going in and out, is actually what drives your nervous system. And more importantly, and this is a huge one, that your breathing is what buffers your blood pH, right? Like this is, we'll get a little bit deeper into this, but the story about CO2 in your body, a lot of people think, oh, CO2, it's a waste product, you breathe it out. It's actually not. CO2 is so important for all the little mechanisms that happen to balance that chemical equation of your blood pH in your body. So when you really get down to it, breathing is totally linked to the immune system in that way, because it keeps that balance and it keeps that function. And, dude, look, this is really an unpopular thing. I have said this before, but really what's happening is, even with this whole COVID thing and the virus, is that it's showing up, it's showing up all the people who have not taken care of their immune systems, who have, as we said before, abdicated their
Yeah,
health to pills or potions or somebody else doing it. And unfortunately, if you do really look at the numbers that's happening, and we will see this in hindsight, right? No one can ever see it while we're in it, but they'll look back and you're already kind of seeing it. And it's people that are over a certain age, people that already have these pre-existing conditions, are the ones that are actually really suffering
yeah,
badly from this, and people can say, oh, this movie star got it or this athlete got it. Do you know what? In my work, it doesn't matter whether you're an athlete or you're a movie star. You
right,
can have compromised immune system.
right.
It's like, it's not something where, like, oh, that guy was the fittest guy, he ran every day and yet he dropped dead of a heart attack. I hear that story all the time. I'm like, you don't know what someone's stress levels are like. You don't know how immunocompromised they are. And so, like the what you mentioned before about the breathing issues, all those ones that you hear of, Really, man, what they come down to is they come down to, people's affinity to breathe is kind of like matched to their affinity to live, right? And unfortunately, if you do have a breathing problem, it should be the first sign to you that there's something not right. Like like there's something that it's the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, let's check this out," like, because there's an issue here. And that goes, I guess that goes for people who suffer really high anxiety with their breathing and things like that. I think that it's a very telltale sign because it's very intimate. Your breathing's intimate. You spend your whole life with it,
Right.
right? Like it's part of you, and it also houses your behaviors, right? So if we even look at this from the point of your chemistry in your body, can and will have an effect on your personality, on how you show up, right? So I know you were probably going to ask me some of these, but we talked about like I know when you sent me your notes and you wanted to talk about some of the myths of
Yeah.
breathing, right? Well, this is a huge one that the myth is that people think their breathing's just for survival, that it's on autopilot, like you take for granted that you just breathe, right? Whereas if you take a different view of that, if you even take a wider perspective, you've got this amazing pre-warning tool for you of how you're feeling, how you're going to show up, how your health is going to be. This is a pre-warning tool for you, and when you start taking notice of it, you start getting all these, insights into how your body is.
It's super interesting because since I've been following, your work and had some sessions with you, which by the way, I tell you a million times thank you over and over again. I, you kind of took my joke away, which I thought I was a breathing expert because I've been breathing since day one, but there's actually quite a bit to it, and it's it's just amazingly interesting. Like you said, there's such that huge balance between that that balance, that homeostasis that the body wants to find with that pH, and that breathing is such a big tool. And I've noticed since working with you, funny things, and I'm really hyper conscious of it now. So thank you, which is good. Awareness is the first step, right? Or acknowledge,
Dude, it
what is it?
is.
Acknowledgement that there's a problem is the first step. And I'm very aware of it. I hold my breath. I'll be working on a project and I don't even know why I'm holding my breath. It's actually very frustrating now. And
Yeah.
I've noticed it a lot. And I've been creating a lot of content lately, writing classes, doing videos. I mean, trying to do PSAs, public service announcements for COVID. We just did one on, the Kawasaki-like disease. What is it? Polysystem, um, uh, yeah, pediatric multisystem inflammatory syndrome. Boy, I had to think about what
Oh,
that PMIS stood for.
wow.
So, and same thing that we talked about though, the kids that are coming up with these complications from COVID, they all had some type of risk factor. Again, I mean, and the weirder thing is with the kids, now some of them had some cancers and some, I mean, there were some other immunological issues,
Right.
but some of them had heart disease and
Wow.
obesity. And, we're reading about kids as young as 8 years old having complications from COVID with, due to the inflammatory state that their body was
Yeah.
in because of these risks. And I
Yeah.
read the list of risks and I'm like, man, those are adult. I mean, I'm not, no adult should, I mean, listen, this is not a judgment. This is just a reality. I mean,
It's fact. Yeah. Like it's happening.
these shouldn't be
Yeah.
adult diseases either. But when I think of obesity and hypertension and heart disease and diabetes type 2, I don't think of an 8-year-old kid, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the saddest, I mean, that's a super sad commentary on who's being affected
Mm.
and really the overall state of health. Probably, I don't know if I want to say worldwide. I mean, I'm familiar with the American numbers, but I think what we're seeing I mean, in, I don't like the word westernized world either. It seems, I mean, I don't
Dude,
know,
it is. It
whatever
is.
world, whatever word you
Yeah.
want to use there, but I mean,
Yeah.
we're seeing it play out in the same numbers over
Yeah.
and over again,
Yeah. And I think like you bring up a couple of important points there. And in my work, this is what you see. Inflammation is the thing, right? Let's face it. Like inflammation is, if you have inflammation, then that's your body's way of saying something's not right.
Right.
Right. And they all, like, I mean, you can tell me better than this. I'm not, I haven't gone through the training you've gone through, but, what I've learned is inflammation is where it starts, all of it. Right. And inflammation is a story that's related to blood pH.
Yep.
Right. And so here we are back at breathing, blood pH regulation, and inflammation. And I think that, there is going to be a whole lot of other factors that are involved in that. And it's really sad that you're saying that you're seeing that, kids with this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This is going to be a reality, Jason. Like, I don't know, again, this is, I don't have, like, I have this struggle with myself with this. It's not an insensitive thing that I have, but it's just like, you see these things, like, I just, for me, I've just, the reason I'm so deep into what I do is because I see this stuff. Like, I see it in people. When people turn up, I can see what's going on for them in their breathing. I can see that it's affecting them mentally. I can see these things. It's just that it's a gift that you have as a healer, that you'll be able to see that sort of stuff. That's why you do what I imagine. That's why you do what you do, because
Oh,
you see something, right? And it's just a fact that we're seeing this stuff. It's not, put aside our own, like, wow, that shouldn't be happening, and it shouldn't, but it's factual. Like, I've seen thousands of people in my career now with breathing dysfunctions, and they literally are. They're things to do with inflammation. They're things to do with lifestyle. They're things to do with choices. They're things to do with, with abdicating our health, like programming. Like, what do you learn in government? Like, dude, what, you know government's trying to do the best they can, but, geez, there's some things that, like, we're already on top of the food
right.
pyramid. We all know that thing is just not,
Right.
like, not right. Like,
Love him or hate him, I love this great quote by Ronald Reagan, past American president, who said, uh, "The nine most dangerous words anybody can utter are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help." So,
dude, we laugh about that, right? But it's
no,
a collective, and, I think that the sad thing is that, I get to see it from here in Australia, and we've got a very similar system to you guys. But the thing is we're too far invested in old models of
yeah, of
medicine.
course.
We're too far invested, and, dude, everyone says, oh, it's evil and it's all about money, and to some degree it kind of is, but I don't believe that there's any Dr. Evil controlling it all.
Right,
Like, everyone wants to kind of pin someone and say, oh, it's, dude, we're all invested in it. It's just that it's old.
right.
It's that's it. And what it,
I mean, I've said it 100 times. I can't remember my exact quote, but when I get in my tizzy, and I'm especially when I'm speaking publicly in a tizzy, I'll use words like outdated, outmoded. You
dude,
know,
it's just old.
it's
That's
just
it.
super old. I mean, I was talking to. I think you'll appreciate this, because I know that your world in respiratory health and breathing intersects whole body health. Part of that whole body health, of course, and really a large part of what you do is stress reduction too. I mean, like I said, there's so much wrapped up with what you do, but I think you'll appreciate this from that point of view. So I was talking to a psychiatrist friend, of mine, and really nice guy, and he said, I'd like to refer. He goes, we're sharing some patients, right? And he said, I'd like to refer more people to you, but when I talk to, your patients, and it's like we're getting good outcomes. He said, I'm not sure that what you do is scientific. And he goes, walk me through it. And so I thought about it for a minute, and I go, I just want to be clear. You're a psychiatrist, and you listen to people's subjective interpretation of what they think is wrong, filtered through your lens, right? And your subjective filtering, trying to guess which drug might be the best choice for them.
Dude.
And I'm like, walk me through that. And he sat there and he goes, good point. And I was
Dude, that what you just said illustrates that whole, pill and potion, thing. It's like diagnose until I can give you something
like,
to put a band-aid on it.
right.
right? And
right.
that's that sick model.
It really is a sick model, you know, and it's funny that we're having this conversation because I'm going to have to just send you a link to this class. I'm teaching this master class right now on, I think it's called Immune Health Masterclass or Immune System Health Masterclass, you know, May 2020, right? And it kind of fed out of a webinar that I did just on updating the public with at least my interpretation of the data that was out there and trying to like sift through the politics and the, you know, and blah, blah, blah.
Mm,
And then so everybody's like, let's do a class. So I put this class together. And in true, you know, actually, I don't know if you're this way, but I have a feeling you're going to relate. I didn't have material for a class, right? But everyone said, let's start Monday. And this is like on a Wednesday. And I'm like, sounds great. Why don't we make it twice a week for an hour for 4 weeks? We'll do 8 classes on immune system
yeah.
health. And I have no content, right? So I've been creating content in real time, you know, and kind of weaving my, you know, Epic 5, you know, revitalization plan, you know, into immune system health.
Mm,
And it's given me a really interesting tool to kind of look through the lenses of my own work and really
mhm.
hyper focus it on COVID. And here's what's come up. And you have not seen this class, right? Here's my conclusion on what my findings were. We talk a lot about risk factors, how they're modifiable. Inflammation is at the key. You know, we talked about, again, the respiratory illnesses that we, you know,
Mhm.
talked about how that's reversible, but ultimately that people haven't invested, I guess, if you will, the effort, the resources, whatever that is, into protecting their immune system health.
Yeah.
And that's why we're in the state that we're in. And what's funny is I didn't necessarily mean to come to that conclusion, right? But it is the conclusion that I came to looking at all of this COVID research, putting together everything that I have for the last 2 decades on the immune system intersecting with, you know, public health measures and trying to sift through the politics. And it was the exact conversation you and I just
Yeah,
had.
dude, it's like, I mean, where's the story about vitamin C? Where's the story about vitamin A and vitamin D, sunlight? Like,
Yep.
dude, it baffles me that it just, do you know, for me, right, it seems like the current medical system in your country, in my country, in the UK, like I know you used Western, but it's kind of true.
Yep.
But it seems like everyone's, you know, it's now the tide's coming out, and you're seeing all the with no, they got no bathers on, right? Like everyone's kind of standing there going, oh, but if you like for all the people that I follow and listen to, everybody has been saying you have to get vitamin C, vitamin A, and vitamin D. Like they're the things that are gonna bolster your immune system the most. And in fact, they're probably the very thing. But nobody in authority that I can see over there in medical, you know, when I say authority, in the medical world, in the standard medical, no one's taught. Why are they not talking about this? Why are they not advocating that everybody go out and boost their immune system this way? It seems like it's for the first time you're kind of standing there pointing at it going, oh my goodness, like does anyone really know anything about the body, like about the immune system, about how it actually works, like,
Great.
you know? And I think that's it's sad, man. Like it's,
Well,
you know, like it just is.
I think you mentioned, I'm not sure which analogy you said, but I got the image of someone standing there with no clothes on. I was thinking about the Emperor's New Clothes. You know, I mean, the thing is
That's
about
it. That's exactly it.
the promise of better life through pharmacy. I mean, let's get real. Like, let me be really, really real about it. If it was better life through pharmacy, I would be the first one in line. I mean, you know, if there was a way, I mean, why not, right? I mean, and how do you put a price? I mean, if there was something that could do everything that we want the pill, powder, you know, powder, potion, you know, product to do, how can you put a value on that? You know, I mean, right? It's a limitless thing that we're talking about.
Dude,
The
do you know
problem,
why?
the
Because it's,
go ahead.
yeah, yeah, go. No, 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 you go ahead. I want you to finish
Well,
this.
the only other thing I was going to say is the thing is though, we as a country, you know, and certainly if we group again those Western, the UK, you know, like whatever that Western country is, the Western country, we put us together. We in America, I can speak to this. We have about 5% of the world population, and we consume about 80%. Wait for this number: 80% of all the pharmaceuticals on the planet. Our tiny little population is just popping pills so much that I wrote I'm not I mean, I do some writing on the side. I wrote a fashion piece for a magazine called Nylon out of LA, like a high fashion called pushing pill boxes, and it was about fashionable pill boxes. $20,000 diamond encrusted pill boxes, right? And I mean, it's crazy to me that we take that much, and yet at the same time, as we've already said, we're the sickest country on the planet. So if it was a better life through pharmacy, we would be the healthiest and most robust people that the world has ever flipping seen,
Oh my
and we're
God,
not. We're not at all,
dude,
So
that's
I think that,
amazing.
yeah, and I think
That's
that
amazing.
the emperor's new clothes are. This is my opinion. I'm gonna jump on. I'm gonna First of all, I should have said everybody's allowed to have an opinion, and we're totally right on that. We just happen to agree, right? So let me just say that, and again, I'm totally, and you are too, and the crowd that we are running around with are all very open to questioning and trying to understand and keeping that door open, having some conclusions that we're basing everything on, but also leaving that door open for scrutiny and feedback. But nonetheless, all of that said, I'm I think that the emperor's, like you said, the emperor's clothes are that our leaders don't really know what's going on.
Mm.
I mean, there is no clear I mean, even within the camps, there's differences of opinions on what the severity of this, the way to go about it. I mean, over here, I mean, even if you're like, no, it's a real thing, and we need to intervene. We have the camps of intubation versus hydroxychloroquine versus remdesivir versus
Yeah.
whatever happened, let it run its course, and monitor, pump them with saline to keep the fluids up. There's a million ways to go about this entire
Oh,
thing.
dude, it's so. And
Yeah,
what I
sorry.
want to add, to that, what you just said about the whole pill thing. And by the way, that is absolutely like that does not surprise me, but that is shocking that people have pill boxes worth that much money. But dude, how I see it is that um, nature doesn't make it like it's not easy. Like, if you look in nature, nothing's easy, but it's worthwhile. And if you're trying to get a free ride off a pill, it's not going to work because it's a shortcut. And life's just not, there's no shortcuts in life, right? When it comes to our health, when it comes to, building wealth, even, and building a business. I mean, you know this, dude. You
Oh
and
yeah.
I have sat in the same room building our businesses. There's no shortcuts.
No.
So, like you can't take a pill and just all of a sudden overnight, there's going to be a cost to that, right? And to your point, that's pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals are like if I could use a term, it's like that. I don't know if you've heard. I heard someone explain this, and I won't do it justice, but they explained the difference between, like, say, pharmaceutical and the way that we do food is like a linear approach where actual nature is fractal. Like, so the way I understood that idea is that you already have everything you need within you in a fractal nature. Like, everything that you need's already in you to heal,
Yeah.
to evolve, to do all this. But when you're trying to add something, and let's say, pharmaceuticals, when you're trying to add something that's not created in you, by you, for you, there's going to be a cost.
Yeah.
There's going to be a cost to it. And so I think that, to your point, this whole thing about trying to get our health out of that kind of system, dude,
Right.
it's not gonna, and here's the other thing, that I have come to terms with, and it comes back to that whole money thing being invested in it, is that, yes, like, if health has become, if not health, if pharmaceuticals and medicine has become a business, it's going to take a while to wind that down. You can't just turn it off overnight either, right? Like, there's people in jobs, you can't just go, oh, let's just pull the plug on it. It's bad. It has to be integrated and wound down, and everyone has to come together and go, there's better ways of doing this, right? Like, so I think that for me, I like to balance things out and see that there's no hugely evil thing about it. It's just that this is what we've got right now. It's not working. Like we said, it's old, it's outdated, and now it's time to start doing something different. And the logical choice for all of us is to start looking back at nature. Dude, that's why I got into this stuff. That's why I got into breathing. I'm like, what is the thing that's going to have the most bang for buck that is natural, right? We wrote a it's a small ebook on, it's called Superhuman Habits. And dude, basically it's light, water, grounding. It's all these things that everyone goes, oh, they're kind of woo woo. I'm like, actually no. Have a look at the science now. People are starting to go, well, no, actually not. Like sunlight's super important for you. Like water. I mean, come on, let's face it. If that's not a if it's
I
not
got,
just a
I got
usual,
people like this just randomly sitting next to me here. I've got Dr. Batman Halij. I can't say his name. You're not sick, you're thirsty, and he has another
dude.
thing called water. Oh, your body's many cries for water. And then this is one of my favorite ones from the very early 1900s, way out of print now, called The Fountain of Youth: Curing by Water by Benedict Lust.
Dude, how is it? How is that? Like, I've got on my bookshelf, I've got the Healing Power of Light, and all these books that are written in the '70s on sunlight,
Right,
and I'm reading them, going, this is when I was born.
right.
Like this information has been around since I was a baby.
Right.
Like that shocked me to
But
know that,
you can't bottle sunlight though, right? I mean, that's
dude.
ultimately the issue, right? And like you said, you have to wind the industries down, and it's tough. Again, I mean, you and I are the same way, where I think we know a lot about a lot of things because, and I'm assuming this about you. We've never talked about it, but
Mm,
I'm one of those guys that I'll go to look something up, and then I need to know the other piece of like, oh, well, this brought up this other
100%.
question, and then pretty soon I'm in this rabbit hole, but I want to understand all of it along the way, so at least
Yeah, dude.
understand it. And I mean, luckily our wives put up with us, so I mean, it's what it is. But
Dude, I think it's good. It's good.
yeah, the thing I was going to say is I found, and I think I was trying to find the source for you, and I couldn't find it quickly, but from a legitimate source, whatever that even means these days, that I was looking up the most profitable industries on the planet. This was my topic. And again, I don't know how I got there, but I was just looking it up. And of course, I mean, looking at just big industry names like pharmaceuticals, right? Um, Entertainment was an industry, automotive was an industry. I mean, these aren't like Ford Motor, it's like the industry, right? So it's pooling all the money worldwide from all of these industries. And this is what they said: if you erased $1 trillion of revenue from pharmaceutical industries annually, they would still be the most profitable industry on the planet. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. Like
Dude.
it's more money, I think, because we hear numbers like billionaires, and Jeff Bezos has got, $100 billion or whatever, 131 billion or whatever it is. Like that trillion number is, and then to have trillions with an S, it's
Dude, I heard something which gave me perspective. I heard that, now I can't remember whether it was a trillion, but they said if you stacked, you guys used to have them, we still got them, $1 coins. They
sure.
said it would go from the Earth to the sun and back, stacked. They said that's the number trillion. Like, when you
That's
hear,
crazy.
like, for me, when you hear those things and you can put it in some kind of visual perspective,
Right.
it is crazy, man. Like that is, dude. Do you know what I would add to that list? Maybe that, I don't know whether you could find it, but lawyers,
Oh,
lawyers and law is, because they're the thing. That's the thing that's kind of the glue that holds it all together. And we won't get in. We won't go down into the conspiracy can, or anything like that. But it is.
right.
Dude, it's unfortunate that and I tell you, I heard this from a guy that I've been kind of following for a little. Actually, he's a really interesting dude that's there in the States. Shiva Aradure. Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
familiar? Yeah, like, and he was talking about how um, right now, and this is the same in Australia, the people that are running the show, that are in power, are not people that are in trades like real science, or like, and he made this comparison which I thought was really interesting. He said all the founding fathers were all like, they all had a trade. Like they were either inventors, or they were, You know, like they knew how to build stuff, and you don't have that of people in politics and that these days. They're not in those kind of like areas. So you've got this culmination of people that just move paper around. You know, that just they're into arguing with each other. You know, law. Now, I'm not saying that I have the answers for that, but I think it's very interesting to look at things from that perspective and say, like, how are we getting to these conclusions that, like you said, that these businesses like a pharmaceutical business can get so huge,
Right.
can get so massive that that there's nothing else you can do. It has to be wound down. It can't just be stopped.
Well, and clearly the industry itself, I mean, and I think the other thing besides the money, I mean, with that much money, obviously you have some sway in a
Oh, of
nation.
course.
I mean, you know, I mean, I don't mean just politics, but I mean like entire countries. I mean,
Yeah.
that amount of money is more than the domestic product of majority of the countries combined on the planet. You
Yeah.
know, and I mean, it's an unfathomable amount of money and power. And then we look at who's, you know, I mean, somebody asked the other day, and I mean, I'm not trying to be political. I'm not, but somebody asked me the other day, and again, this is such dangerous territory, so I'm very careful.
Opinions where like everyone listening,
My
this is just
opinion aside,
opinions.
listen, this was just asked to me. These are not my words. When did we decide as a country, and I'm speaking as Americans here, when did we decide that we could just say, oh, to hell with whatever constitutional rights we may think we have, and we're just going to hand it over to some set of scientists and doctors to make the decisions for us, filtered through politicians who have an agenda? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I get the question. I don't have a solution for our immediate, like, I don't know what should be done, what shouldn't be done in all those pieces, but it is interesting, I think is the right word to use.
Oh, dude, so interesting.
That power was handed over so amazingly quickly. And,
Do you
and,
know?
and again, I think that, you know, panic, and I mean, you've heard it from, you said it, I've said it, Alex, our friend, has said it. I mean, when there's panic and disorder and fear around, I mean, people can't make good decisions, you know, and so there's going to be a voice. There's always going to be a voice coming through, and hopefully people gravitate toward a healthy, constructive voice.
Oh man,
You
I
know,
wanna I wanna add to that because I'm not in your country, and so I can have an opinion. Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
hi,
Do you say hi?
how are
Okay,
you?
I'm gonna.
Nice to see you. Oh, you're awesome.
Oh, you're getting the show now.
Great.
Hey, girls. Okay, give me some time.
What are the hat? So what are the hats though? We gotta like.
Oh,
What are the?
they've been constructing stuff and creating a phone.
I love it. I
All
love it.
right. Thanks, girls. See you. Have a great day at school.
Hi.
Sorry.
Dude, we're all good. What I will have an opinion on that because I'm not in your country. Dude, do you know what I think the sad thing is? It's just abdication of your voice and of your health and of your wealth and your money.
Right.
And let me qualify that. It's that people want someone else to take care of it, right? And what that does is that then you have people who rise in power and generally, and dude, I can tell you this as a I've experienced this in the military, right? Where now this is just again my opinion, but what happens is in the military is that people that like power, they stay in, so they keep raising in the ranks, right? And then what you eventually get is you get these people that have not they haven't broadened their perspective, but they've got into a power of authority. They got into a position of authority, and I think that if you were to look at society, and it's like that in our country and in your country, people just abdicate that stuff. They say, oh, the doctors will take care of my health. Oh, you know, the financial planners and the bankers will take care of my money and my financial position, right? And it's just if you do that, it's gonna concentrate the power in those areas, and the people that get concentrated to lead that. may not be the most enlightened people. They may not have had the life experience, or they may not have had the experience. I mean, man, like, let's face it. I mean, I've met so many people in the health, in the medical industry. I've met so many people in the financial and and I would look at them and go, wow, like, I would not feel safe handing over my health or my money to you, only because I wouldn't feel like they've had an experience, like, and that's just me personally. But I think that it's a hard thing to say, and a hard pill to swallow, if we pardon the pun on that.
Right.
But I think that that is, like, for me, in my opinion, that would be the problem. Is that people just hand it over. They hand it over without saying, I need to have
Right.
some serious critical thinking on what I do with my health, what I do with my money, what I do with my business, and it's up to you, like, I think that you just got to be self-empowered in those areas, and then you'll make better decisions, because it's not like everyone in power is bad, or that they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
But it's just that you've also got to have the input. You've got to also be involved in the game, like, and engaged in it. And I think that for me, that's how I feel having this conversation with you, is that we're engaged personally in the game. That's why we're doing what we're doing, right? That's why we're building our own business out of this. Where we're talking about refreshing these industries and areas that we're in, because we have self-educated ourselves, right? Like, we understand that. And I think what is smart is not to say that you have all the answers, but what's smart is to say that it is time for a change. And like, I know it may not happen in my lifetime, some of these things, right? I know, but if I set the ball in motion, and I educate my kids, and I educate the people who want to come and share in my opinion, and I can educate them, I guess my stewardship, or my station in that, is that I give them a well thought out version of what I think. When I talk about breathing with people, I'm like, I practice it. I delve myself into it. I look at all aspects of it. I look at all the opinions. I have this favorite thing where I say, I listen to everyone and follow no one, right? And that's not because that's not out of an arrogance thing. It's just that I think that it's healthy to not get myopic about how you do something. It's only got to be the one thing. I think it's very healthy, and I think that what the world needs in the medical system right now, and you're doing this as well, is that we need to come out of the whole, like, only looking at one thing, specializing. I think we need, because all the breakthroughs, dude, they're coming from people that aren't in the industries.
Right.
People that can have a non, they're not burdened by the complexity of what they're learning. Like, you come out and you're a specialist in one area, and so therefore everything has to be, it's all got to be a function of the cell, and of this kind of thing that happens in the cell. It's like, well, the body's a full system. It's not just about getting the drug that solves that little mechanical problem,
Right.
right? Like, there's this whole system at play. So I think that the more work that we do, in doing that, and it will eventually. I think that everything cycles. I think eventually people will wake up. Then they'll go, okay, we've got to do something different,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing. And I don't want to forget, man, like, even though we went off on this tangent, I do want to bring this back to what you mentioned about breath holding, right? Because I
Oh,
think that
yeah.
this is super relevant for us talking. And what I will say about that is that our breathing, when I was talking before about your breathing having a role in your blood pH and your things like that, this is where the behavior part comes into it. And sometimes the breath holding is a trigger for you to do certain things. And, like, this is where my work gets really interesting. It's super, super interesting. Your breathing, you have learnt behaviors in your breathing that will, without your conscious awareness, will change your consciousness and your state. So if you're doing something that requires really high concentration levels, it may have you change your blood pH or change your carbon dioxide levels so that you can focus more, or that you can access a different state of consciousness. Like, a lot of people get high from breathing. And here's some of the weird and wonderful things about that. Some people breathe in a different way to mask pain, or to mask emotional aspects of their life, or to access symptoms so that they can have an excuse to do certain things. Like, dude, it's so fascinating, and that's why I'm in this stuff. It's so fascinating to know that your physiology is operating outside of sometimes your conscious awareness. And when people kind of get that, it's a bit of a concept to try and get. It takes you a little while maybe to think about it. But when you get it, that's why you have these little odd behaviors like breath holding, or, you might find that you start breathing in a certain way to access a certain type of personality. Even, like, you bring this into the field of, and it already is tied through that field. You mentioned psychology and psychotherapy in that before. Well, changing your body chemistry through your breathing to access different personalities is a very common thing. Super common.
It's amazingly interesting. I mean, just to think of, I mean, it's like the body is just, I'm in awe of it all the time. And on one level, when you break it down to its little bits, it all makes sense. I mean, there's a certain beautiful simplicity to the different pieces. But then when you put it together, the orchestra, I mean, like that symphony that it plays, if you will, it's super complex. And I love this term that Jeff Bland used, and I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but I think you'd love his work. He actually coined the term functional medicine, so he is the
Oh,
grandfather of
cool.
functional, right?
Okay.
So, and he wrote a great book that I know that you'll love called The Disease Delusion. I
Oh,
highly
I'm gonna write
recommend
that
it.
down.
And, he's just about, we've named all these different conditions, and it's really just dysfunction in the body, right? I mean, ultimately, it's inflammation, and there's some basic stuff that your body needs to get better, right? And anyway, he coined the term simplexity, which I really like. It's
All
like
right.
simple and complex. So the body has its simplexity to it. I really like that. No, you're totally right. So now I'm wondering, is that a positive adaptation with me holding my breath? I mean, maybe it's engaging, like I said, I mean, I'm turning over more oxygen, I'm getting more CO2, my pH is changing. Maybe that is helping me access part of my brain in a way. And just
Dude, that's a great question. And here's the way to look at it. The breathing behaviors and habits that you have, if they're reinforced and lead to a positive outcome for you, then it's not dysfunctional. If they're reinforced and they lead to a negative outcome for you, then it's dysfunctional.
okay,
Now, here's the kicker though. What's dysfunctional for you may not be dysfunctional for somebody else,
right, right,
right? So it comes down to this. It comes down to this notion that, again, it's something for you to be taking notice of.
right,
If you're allowing your breathing to drift, if you're paying no attention to it, then guess what? Your environment and your habits and everything that you do will dictate your outcomes, right? So it pays for you to notice, what are these unconscious habits? Like, can I pick them up? Do I have triggers? And if you're getting a negative result in life, negative result being, let's take the really easy ones. If you're feeling anxiety
right,
more than often, or if you're not feeling satisfied in your life sometimes, if you keep having relationship issues because you've got a certain personality trait, dude, these can all be classed as negative outcomes that more than likely will be a breathing habit, because it's changing you from moment to moment with the blood pH, right? So it's this super intricate system, but as you said before, I like that word, simplexity.
Right.
but it has a simple mechanism that you have drive over. Like you can take your breathing out of automatic, put it into manual, and you can do some analysis on, if I do put a little bit of focus on my breathing, how does this affect my outcome? And do the work that I do, even though we would say, like I would say, the work that I do is around lowering reactivity for business leaders, right? That's a niche that I'm in, right? But what is that at a deep level? That's these guys noticing that they have certain behaviors that will either jeopardize their relationships with their teams and people around them, because you have a boss that flies off the handle and they can't hold on to a team. If you can't have a relationship with people you work with, or your spouse, or your kids, it's going to be negative. So it's understanding that there's a place for you to look for these things, and you can tie it back to body chemistry. So, talk about mind body connection. Dude, that's why I'm so fascinated with this, because I can see that for the very first time in my life, when people used to talk about mind body connection, it's like, oh, well, is that a spiritual thing? Is it a thing that only yogis get to do? Is it a thing that only people that sit in caves for 7 years and meditate get to achieve? Well, no, not really. No, when this comes into the picture, you've got a way of looking at your body chemistry to understand if you've got a mind body connection, because your blood pH is going to affect your behavior, right? And that steeps into this whole thing about personality. So, dude, you can have
I think
personality shifts.
you just blew my mind. I mean, with like you said, the complexity of this, right? I mean, I can maybe think of a few other things, but there aren't many that I could say that people have complete control over, as long if they want to have complete control over it, I mean, it's a conscious choice there. But when I was just thinking about this, when you put your attention on your breath, besides the fact that now maybe you're breathing, I don't want to say in a more healthy manner, but let's just say maybe in a more healthy manner, doing some belly breathing, doing some, deep breaths. Maybe you're doing, the square technique that I learned from you, which I had actually been totally doing, by the way. I meant to tell you this. I just
Yep.
inherently was doing that when I would get anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just do this weird breathing technique that I had developed over, you know, 2 or 3 decades, and it helped me through those moments, and then here's
Yep.
the world leading, breath expert saying, here's this technique. And I'm like, awesome. I love that. I love that. Like, it's just like, because then of course what you're saying is like, absolutely, that's what it is, because I know that works. And then you taught me a couple of other breathing techniques that, blew my mind. But here's the cool thing. When besides the physiological aspect of this, right? I mean, literally you're changing pH, like you said, by turning that attention onto the breath, there's a total Zen moment there, right? That we don't get to experience much in our day-to-day lives, because most of our days are spent, I mean, for a lot of people, either doing something, thinking about the past, and trying to resolve something, or
Mm-hmm.
doing something for the future, whatever that thing happens to be. And there's very few moments where you're just, you know what, I'm just breathing. I'm literally focusing on my breath. The next, 5 seconds I'm breathing in, and then I'm holding it for 5 seconds, and then I'm blowing out, and whatever that technique happens to be, where it becomes all of a sudden it's this, like you said, it's like a body brain connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, so you have that, but then you have the intention behind it. If you add that behind, I mean, it's like a full on mind, body, spirit, connection there. That's mind blowing to me. And you're going to gain benefits from all sorts of pieces there, the physiological aspect, the meditative aspect, just getting oxygen to your tissues, if nothing else, I mean, just some cool stuff.
Yeah, dude, like what you just described, like you just described what one of the basic uh, um, foundations of suffering for people, which is being in the past and being depressed, or being too far in the future and being anxious,
Right.
anxiety. Anxiety is just worrying about stuff that hasn't happened yet, right? And then you have what you described, the presence. That's like if you go through any ancient scriptures, read any basis of religion, any of those things, and I've done a lot of that, there's always a reference to breath, right? Always a reference to breathing. Even in the Catholic and Christian faith, there's references to breathing, right? Like spirit, in
Right.
spiritus,
And
like all
spirit.
these words are words for breath and for life force and for spirit, right? So it's woven through all of them. But that basic thing you just described of being in the past or being in the future, or you have a choice of being present. Now, not one is worse than the other. They're all you're required to do all of them, right? But as you said, that you have this inbuilt mechanism in you that allows you to have, you know, let's not say control, but the ability to choose to move from one to the other. And as we pointed out, we're probably too much in either the past or the future in our life, and it causes these, you know, I guess if you want to call depression and anxiety a condition, you can, but it's so much more than those things. But that ability for you to visit that present part of it is so key, man. Like that's where you do your critical thinking. That's where you rejuvenate yourself and replenish yourself. And as far as mental health is concerned, dude, it's the sweet spot for combating any type of mental health issue, so it's really it's a map. Some people call it a map of consciousness, or however people describe that. But dude, yeah, I this stuff fascinates me,
Yeah.
which is why it's so fascinating to me that you can connect that to your body chemistry.
Right.
That it can be connected, and in fact, with the right instrumentation, you can see it on a readout. Like in my work at the moment, and I haven't started this part yet, but we're going to be using a capnometer, right? And this is a machine that measures CO2 levels in the body. And what you're doing with that is you're capturing data on when the CO2 levels shift. It often means that you're triggering some kind of emotional trigger that puts you into like a hypercapnic state, or a dysfunctional breathing state, right? So with these machines, you can actually look when someone hits their trigger and goes into their whatever the psychological problem is that they're having,
Right.
but it's connected into the physiology, so you can actually see it. And so I think that that's fascinating, that you're going to be able to say to someone, put this machine on, and start thinking about something that upsets you, or start thinking about, if you've got a habit that you've just not been able to shift, or it's unconscious, you'll be able to see it show up through this type of work, like, and so I think that it's going to be, it is an amazing breakthrough. I mean, this stuff's been around for a while, but it's only just starting to come to light now, and I think that it will be for the future of work in psychology and work in behavior change and work in these sorts of things. This is going to be a really a very valuable place to look. Um,
Well,
you
I've
know,
already I've already gamed this for you, and here's what I want for me, being the freakazoid that I am, biohacker. I want the home device that syncs to my smartphone, right? I mean,
oh, dude, it's
that's
coming. It's
you
coming.
know.
You'll see it.
So,
It's called a capnometer, and there, I know the guy that I'm studying with right now, Peter Litchfield. He's an amazing dude. That done a lot of work around. He's got the first graduate in breathing sciences degree that they've got. So I'm just currently on the pathway to that. But they've developed this capnometer that you can wear, and it can measure it can give you measurements of your CO2 levels in real time. And so you can be at work doing your normal day, and if you've always been trying to catch these triggers of
right,
why, when it puts you into this dysfunctional thing, which then changes your personality, or you
right,
go into fits of rage,
right.
you're going to be able to pinpoint the time at which it happens, and then you're going to be able to go, what was happening
Yeah,
during that time? So you're going to get real time feedback about this stuff. So, dude, as far as like people being able to come off medications or not rely on, like medical intervention for things, this is going to be groundbreaking for those sort of people. People are going to be able to self empower themselves and self teach themselves that, oh, this is what I do. This is what I think about, and then it triggers this dysfunctional breathing, and then that dysfunctional breathing causes my pain, or it causes, so. Dude, I just think it's a really interesting field. It's an amazing sort of and of course for me, the kicker is it's natural. It's you're naturally doing it. You're not, so you'll be able to there'll be a natural intervention for you, which will be unlearn the dysfunctional breathing habit and install a functional habit in there.
Well, and I like the word, you use so many buzzwords there, but function is, ultimately important. And that's what we're talking about, is just restoring function and actually reconnecting, because we've, and I know we're over time, and thank you, and I appreciate it. And
Dude, it's all
but you know, I think for so long we were told that health has to be complex, whatever that means. We boiled it down. I mean, and I'm not picking on anybody. It's a process, right? I mean, when we figured out things like mass producing penicillin, it saved a lot of lives, because people used to die from, infections all the time. We don't have the same need for antibiotics, at least on like they did back then. I mean, we live in a hygienic state now, and there's all sorts of things to come in there and talk about, and manipulation of the microbiome and all of that stuff, right? But I mean, there's a reason that patent medicines grew to where they are, and then we start hearing about, as the drugs became more and more complex. I mean, the reason they became complex, and the reason we started focusing on that half of that one enzyme that does a quarter of that part of the process with my new drug patent, is because all the patents have been grabbed. I mean, there's nothing left to patent anymore. So we
dude,
start
yeah.
taking these patents and developing a drug that we know does it. And this is the way drug testing is done, because I live here in Iowa City, and we have a research university here. The drug companies will hire out the pharmacy engineer people, people coming up with chemicals, right? And they'll say, we own the patent for, again, that hyper slice of the physiology. Come up with something that manipulates that. We're not even trying to cure anything at this point. Just tell me what I can do to manipulate this pathway. And so then they'll come up with a novel chemical, and then they'll run trials first on mice to see what happens when they start, manipulating that hyper snippet of the enzyme. And then they'll measure the blood and do all this and look for like what's happening. Like they don't even know what the purpose of the chemical is anymore until after they've created it, to hyper specifically, take care of this thing, watch what happens to the mice, keep all their data, hope that the mice don't die, and then they'll apply for, human trial. And it's crazy. I mean, instead of starting with, hey, people are because if we start with another question, hey, people are diabetic, overwhelmingly, we're talking about type 2 diabetics. If we ask the question, what should we do for type 2 diabetes, right? The answer is, let's change what's on the plates and on the forks and how much we're eating and how little we're moving. I mean, like that's the solution. There's no drug. We don't need, to sensitize our insulin receptors, and we don't need, to control our blood sugar absorptions with all these we don't, or the pancreas this or that, we don't need those drugs if we just step back and say, what's our purpose? But again, the purpose of the drug was never meant to cure diabetes. It was to manipulate that tiny little snippet of the pathway that they just found out not enough mice died, so it's a good enough to give to humans, and it seems to sort of affect what we would call diabetes. And
Dude, what that makes me think of
so
is
sick though,
that
right? It's disgusting.
what it makes me
Right.
think of though is it's that academics are in control, right? Not people who are looking at things like a system and solving problems. It's academia, and that complex that bit about complexity that I mean, go anywhere and look at a lot of things. Like that's what academics do. They look for they're addicted to complexity, like, and dude, genius is simplicity.
Right.
Like if you go and look if you look back and you go in even into ancient kind of scriptures, and you go, if you go back far enough, everything reduces to simplicity.
Absolutely.
The sophistication is simplicity, right? Like, and so, to your point, you get all these people that want to make something complex because they feel smart about it. And
Or in control,
unfortunately, at the base of
or in
that is
control, right? They're control.
totally, that's ego. That's where I was going. Ego, and you just nailed it. Control and ego.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part because I think that, our current systems of education and medicine and that it's all academic driven.
Oh yeah.
It's not so. I mean, I don't say that to say that academic. When I use the term academics, I'm not picking on any one particular, but it's a collective thinking, right? Let's put it that way. And you just described it like the way you described it. And dude, inject into on top of that business and money,
Oh yeah. I mean,
right? Like, and we get it. A business like this is what people that I've had conversations with people around the pharma thing, and people are like, oh, it's evil and whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but you got to understand business. There's shareholders that want money, and so the businesses have to keep creating stuff, and so they
heck,
are going to create more drugs.
it's their legal duty to make a profit for their shareholders. I mean, I mean, it's like it is what it is. I mean, and like you said, we've created it, and it's not gonna. It's a big animal,
Yeah,
I mean, academic medicine is what we're talking about. I mean, and again, I love science. I mean, you do too. I mean, so this is not
yep,
a rejection of, what I don't know, because there's the people like, I don't need science. I've got God. I don't think that we're not saying that. To me, they're the same thing.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
whatever and
yeah.
whatever
I
happens,
agree. No,
that
I
should
agree with you.
somebody, and I don't mean to, But I mean,
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you.
yeah, I had the fortune. We're gonna, you know what? We're gonna have to continue this again. We'll have you back on, but I had the fortune of, in my youth, in my college days, of working for a chaos theorist named Dr. Jaeon Kim, who was looking for order and chaos, right? And he was
Yeah.
looking for the God particle, right? I mean, this was a guy searching for the God equation. Like, there's got to be a unifying equation. I mean, and I was his research assistant for like 2 years of my life,
Oh man.
and listened to his crazy ramblings. And my job was great. I got paid way too much money to photocopy books. Like, I mean, like 1,000-page books, like just because they were on interlibrary loan. And I don't know if I should say that. I'm sure it was very legal, but nonetheless, I was just photocopying books. That was my entire job, and listening to him talk about chaos theory. And again, I think that we're coming back to this idea that we made it really complex, but there probably is simplicity. And I think that what we're doing now is realizing again that there is no powder, potion, pill, product. There's no, I mean, and I don't mean this politically, there's no free or cheap or affordable insurance. None of this stuff is going to save us. I mean, that's not to say I don't think people should get free or cheap or affordable insurance. I'm just saying that even if people I mean, I'm sure a lot of those people that died from COVID-19 complications had amazing insurance. I'm sure that a lot of them were on a lot of really otherwise known as great medications, for their
Hmm.
conditions. I mean, that I almost used a 4-letter word there. I'll use crap instead. That crap's not going to save us.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Ultimately,
you.
you're seeing it, I think we're seeing the leaders. I mean, I mean, I wish we had more sway over the powers that be in the world, right? Listen, I was going to make a joke about being dictator for a day or two, the world, not me, not me, but I think that if like you said, I mean, Shakespeare said, the first thing we should do, and I'm not advocating this, but Shakespeare's famous for saying, first thing we should do is kill all the lawyers. I mean, I do think they complicate things, and I think money complicates things, and I mean, it's a tough road that we've dug for ourselves here.
Yeah.
We have a ways to go as humans on this planet. We have a ways to go.
Oh, dude, and I just like to add to what you said, and I've always said this, that it's great that you have an opinion and you and I are having this discussion, and at the same time, you and I don't know what it's like to be the president, right? Or the prime minister of a country. Like, I've not been in that position. Like, so it's difficult. Like, it's easy for people to point fingers and say it's this person's fault. And it's easy for us to sit here and have our opinions, but we've never been in that position. Man, I know just from my military days, leading people and stuff like that, it's a tough gig.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of you've got to deal with a lot of stuff. So I just want to pitch in there and just support what you're saying, and also for the people that are watching this or listening to this, that by no stretch, would I think that I would have all the answers if I got to that position. Um, but what I do know is what I would do is I would definitely be looking for the people who could help me to uncover this stuff, and to really have robust discussions about the role of nature in it, the role of how do you wind down businesses that are old models, like what's the best way to wind that down and transition everybody to the new way of doing it. And I think for me, the reality in that is it may not be in our lifetime, but we can start the process rolling of that, right? Like you and I sitting here having this discussion is that, and then whoever listens to this discussion will have somewhere different to go and look, some new information that they might go, oh, I'm interested in that. I might go and look at that, because I know that's what I do. I
Absolutely.
listen to many different opinions, and something will sing to me, and I'll go, oh, like that sounds true for me, right? Like so, and I think that if I were to give anyone any advice on on the experience I've had, it's that the more aware you become about your body and about what's going on, the more that something will sing to you when you hear it, and the more that you can go and have a broader look, and also be okay if you believe something, but then you find out it's actually not true, and you have to change your
Sure.
be have the courage to switch opinions, and and go, oh well, I did think that way, but I think that this is a healthier way to look at it, or things like that. I think that that's probably the best. And you know be careful about what information you consume, of course. Like, it's like anything. What a telltale sign for me is if someone is absolute in something, I think there's something wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think if someone is like, this is it, this is the only way, this is the answer, I'm like, eh. I'm like, just,
Right.
for me, it's like, it's a stuck position. I think that as a human, you've always evolving, like our bodies are always evolving. We're always evolving. Like, and I think it's healthy to not be absolute in something, so
Well,
life's full of paradoxes, man. Like, like if there's one thing I've learned about life and experience in my 43 years on the earth, it's that there's so many paradoxes. There's half truths and truths, and what's true for someone else may not be true for the other person. And like, and I think you have to develop a healthy, robust way of existing in that, and not always having to be right. Not everything that I say on here is going to be right for everyone.
right. Well, listen, God knows I get myself into trouble by, I mean, you watch it all the time. I mean, I'm like I will think, sometimes I think in advance with some of my posts, I will show Rachel, I'm like, I'm going to get flack for this. I already know it, I never, I don't, I do mean to press buttons with the way I go
Yeah.
about it, but I don't ever want to offend anybody. The other day I posted a picture of, I think, five um, people, public health people and mayors of different cities that are giving some health advice on COVID. And all that I said was, would you trust health advice from these people? Question mark, thoughts. That's all that I said. And it became the weirdest responses. I got a lot of no's, and then I got a lot of no's because the people that I posted look unhealthy. And then I got a lot of people saying you can't judge a book by the cover because maybe they're brilliant, but like have brilliant things to say, but maybe aren't practicing themselves. And we don't know about people's inner demons and addictions. And what else? Oh, that I was personally being political by, now granted, I will say that these are all what I would call in America liberal public health
Yeah,
leaders,
dude, and
right?
opinions
Right.
are healthy,
Right.
right?
So nonetheless, then it became a politicized argument of no, we have to go along with them because they're the health leaders, and they're blue and I'm going to be blue with them, and but no, I'm red. They're wrong because they're blue, and you know, it became this, I mean, and I want, all that I said was literally, Shane, all I said was, would you take advice from these people? And it
Dude,
was just like,
you're seeing the devil of dichotomy, right? Like
oh,
you're seeing the good versus evil, and this is what I was just saying.
yeah,
I think for me that all stopped when I came to this conclusion of paradoxes. Like it
right,
doesn't it literally doesn't matter. Like you someone's going to be half right and half wrong,
right,
and what's true for someone else and what works for someone else is not that. I mean, dude, that's why we live in the countries where it's like that,
right.
where you can have, you know, you can have some freedom of speech, you can have freedom of opinion, you
I
know,
saw,
like
I saw you check yourself there. You still have freedom of speech. You can't give it.
only, yeah, only because, well, I mean, this is freedom of speech for us,
Of
right? Like
course, yeah,
you and I kind of, you know, having our discussion here, and whoever chooses to listen to it, and I'm sure, you know, like I would love to hear from someone who has a different opinion who wants to, dude, I I handle myself very well in a discussion or an I'm you know I'm always happy to agree to disagree. If someone is steadfast in their view and right, guess
sure.
what? They're right, and nothing I can say is going to sway them from that. So it's, you know, for me, it's like, okay, you're right, and you move
Well,
on. You
I
know,
get that little twitch when I don't, I've really, Rachel and I think you guys, I mean, we've really gone out of our way. My patients know this, and my public knows this, because I talk about it oddly a lot, where we've gone out of our way to kind of excise confrontation from our life. It's not, that doesn't mean disagreement, right? Because you can have a
yeah,
disagreement and a discussion, and it can be healthy, and you can both grow from it. But in those, that confronting part, you know, like you said, when somebody is that adamant to a confrontation, you know, I start to get that. I mean, I'm sure my breathing changes, right? But I mean, I start to get that quiver of, boy, this doesn't feel right anymore. Like it's no longer
yeah.
a conversation, you know, and it's, you know, I'm right or you're right, and we are going to draw a line and we're going to go to fists over it, you know. And I was like, boy, I mean, it's ultimately just opinions, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
dude, and
just
it's, you know,
thoughts.
what you're describing is a level of maturity that not a lot of people reach. You know, to be able to have a robust discussion and agree to disagree with someone is a level of maturity. To want to be right and want to, you know, kill, maim, and crush somebody over being wrong is just, dude, it's not
Right.
mature. It's just
It's
not it's just not. And you know, I served in the military, mate. I was, you know, I served in special forces. And you know, like it's interesting, man. It's like little kids scrapping in the schoolyard over arguing over, you know, this piece of land or that piece of land or this
right.
resource or that resource. And unfortunately, we just have it like collectively, our maturity is not at that level where we can have, you know, amicable disagreements with each other and talk about how to get to solutions that are win-win for everybody.
Right.
You know, you're seeing it still, dude, you're still seeing it play out over the planet right now where people, you know,
I
like
think we've
just,
come a long way, but
oh,
we're still just
100%.
scrapping and fighting with each other. I mean, it's, I mean, I am, and I think, and we, I, like I said, we'll say bye here in just a second, but I am Irish by nature. And so, you know, I always make the joke that, you know, I know a lot about drinking and fighting, you know, and I feel like saying that as an Irishman, uh, I think the world is Irish, you know, and I'm joking about, I mean, whether or not take the drinking or not, I mean, we just, it's just interesting. But listen, I loved our conversation today. I want to thank you so much, for coming on. We're going to have you back because I want to talk about, you know, combat breathing and intervention
Yeah,
in high stress situations. But again, you're breatheme.com. You and Angie, and I'm doing some remarkable work around, I mean, really around the planet, working with some really high level people and helping them connect with their true selves and diffuse some of that anxiety and stress and anger that comes with sometimes, those
mm-hmm,
people in those powerful positions. So thank you for your work, on the planet. And you know, I love you dearly. And thanks for
yeah.
being on the show. Yeah, I appreciate it. I was going to say thanks for having me on your show, but you know, so, at any rate, thank you so much. And we're going to share a link, that's to a free class that you're offering.
Yeah,
We'll make sure that everybody has access to that too. So thank you, sir, and I'll talk to you soon.
you're welcome, mate.